like to invite everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. And I guess it depends on which clock you're going by, because that clock says we started right on time, so that's good.
Okay, that's Orangevale time.
That's Orangevale time.
Different time zone.
So, welcome everyone. Before we start this evening, I want to thank our CHP officers for joining us. You guys are always so nice. In just a moment, after I acknowledge some of our community leaders, if you have any brief updates, you're welcome to come up and share them with the group.
Thank you.
Okay. And so, who among us are elected or appointed to a community board or organization? Please stand and introduce yourself and tell us what you are, where you serve.
I'm Bob Crawford. I'm the chairman of the CPAC, which is the Community Planning Advisory Council. She appointed me, so, and you're
Hi,
right.
Bob. I'm sure I'll get to know you better as time goes by. I see Mike McKibben, who's with the school board.
Hi, everybody.
And I see, who else do I see? Did you have your hand up?
Oh, no.
Oh, Brad Squires isn't standing up, but he's one of our community leaders. Hi, Bridget.
Hi, how are you?
And serves on the Orangevale Community Council and president of the chamber. Julie King is our honorary mayor. Julie, do you have any announcements for the city this evening that you'd like to give?
Is it the one that we'd like to give?
No, we can't do that here. That won't be appropriate. This is actually an official county business meeting, so we can't do those other external campaign activities. Although what I generally do during campaign season, and I do this at all my meetings, is I like to, anyone who's running for office is welcome to just stand up and introduce yourself and say which office you're running for. And then what I'll say is that these individuals are welcome to stay after the meeting, and if you want to ask them questions after the meeting, that will be fine. We can't politicize this meeting. This is a community meeting. But I know Bridget is running for an office. Would you like to stand up and introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Bridget Duffy, and I am also running for Supervisor of Sacramento County. And like Sue said, I'll be outside after the end of the meeting, and anybody who would like to ask me any questions may.
Step out on the patio right now, just
Is there anyone else?
You're not running for her.
Yes, me and Sue are on the ballot for
The same district?
the Sacramento County
Okay,
Supervisor in the 4th District.
thank you.
Spiced up this meeting real quick, didn't I?
They're usually pretty spicy. Okay, I'm going to invite Lieutenant, is it Robin Johnson?
Yes.
Robin, come on up with everyone. Is it Commander or Lieutenant?
Lieutenant Johnson.
I think of you as a commander, and I always think I'm going to get it wrong, the title wrong. But
That's okay, thank you very
maybe you
much.
folks will give us an update. Thanks for being here tonight.
No problem, thank you. I don't want to take up a lot of time. We typically spend a little bit more time during the meetings with the Sheriff's Department, which we had last week. But I just wanted to, I've been in place about a year now, and for those of you who I've never met, my name's Robin Johnson. I'm the lieutenant, which I am the commander of the East Sacramento area.
That's why.
Right, it kind of goes, it's a couple titles. But we have a couple changes happening. Clyde, Officer Holland is my current public information officer, and he's going to be transferring up to our Placerville office. And so Officer David Armstrong is going to take over for him. So basically their position here is they're my right-hand men. And so they make sure that I'm where I'm supposed to be and doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So David, you'll see him at some of the meetings, and then you've also seen Sergeant Barrios, who's in charge of our POP program, which I'll tell you, those of you who have never seen me before or listened to me, the POP program, for any traffic complaints, you guys, most of you know, is you want to email us for, unless it's an absolute emergency and you need to call 911, but for traffic complaints within your neighborhood, school zones, those types of things, please email 260-POP@chp.ca.gov. And Sergeant Barrios goes through each of those emails and he'll respond to each one of you, and then we'll send out an officer to address the issues within the neighborhood.
260-POP.
260-POP@chp.ca.gov. Just a real quick rundown. The 2019 wrapped up. We had all of our enforcement contacts and ticket writing and that type of thing, if you will, and was very increased in this area. But the problem that we're having, even though we're issuing more citations, making more stops, having one-on-one contact with people who are violating the law, we are still having a problem with an increase in traffic collisions. Our traffic collisions are still up. Our fatality rate is up. We're doing everything in our power. We're using grants and really starting to saturate some areas. So you'll see over the next few months, we have some scheduled dates that we'll be hitting Orangevale with a team of officers coming out. We'll have several motorcycle officers. We're teaming with Folsom PD, and we'll probably hit Citrus Heights, Rancho Cordova, and we're actually doing things as a group and moving through so that we can have more enforcement within certain areas. We just hit Scott Road on Tuesday, out over off of White Rock and Scott Road. We hit that area. We'll be up here in Orangevale sometime this month. So just so that you guys know, we are listening to your complaints. We are out there. We just can't be everywhere at once, as you know. So again, thank you very much for the time to come up here and just say hi. If there's anything that you need, please do not hesitate to call us at the CHP East Sacramento area. And then, like I said, traffic complaints at the 260-POP.
Thank you. Thank you, Lieutenant.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is there anything other than ticketing that you're using to try to remedy the problem?
We do a lot of different things. We don't just issue tickets. There's a lot of times that we'll pull over, we'll do verbal warnings. We do a lot of, Clyde and David go out and do a lot of traffic safety presentations. One of the things, as everybody knows, is distracted driving is a very big issue that is causing a lot of collisions and a lot of fatalities. So Clyde does a lot of, he does Start Smart classes with teens. He does an Age Well class with older drivers, and then he goes around to the different schools and does presentations for distracted driving as well.
One of our other tools that we use is the radar trailer. We've been deploying that to different locations throughout, not only Orangevale, but also out on Latrobe Road, or not Latrobe Road, but Jackson Highway, State Route 16. And that's another, it's another tool that we're out there and we're deploying it and using it to try and get people to slow down, realize that they're going as fast as they are. So that's another tool we use.
If there's a collision and somebody was on their phone, is there any way to, do they get extra fined, or, is there any extra?
It just
Is there
depends
any
on
way to
if we
tell?
can prove that they were on the
Okay.
phone. So it would be investigated,
Okay.
depending on. So I don't want to take up any more of your time, but we will be back here. If you guys have any questions at the end of the meeting, we'll be back there to answer anything you have.
Can we also get your contact for our office? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so in the usual practice of our meetings, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go through just some brief updates as quickly as I can to make sure that I am hopefully going to be leaving enough time for a conversation with you after, because that's the best part for me, is hearing from you and what your concerns are. Tonight I'm going to talk about homelessness. our mobile crisis support teams, we have some exciting news on that, an update on roads, the Inspector General, and if we have time, we'll talk a little bit about some of the, like, there are some possible initiatives coming on the ballot in November and on March 3rd that if you have questions, we can have that conversation if we have time. On homelessness, I wanted to update you on the Pride project. For all of you that have been, how many of you have never been to one of my meetings? Okay, it's quite a few, so thank you for coming. And also, I want you to feel free if you are not receiving my newsletter. If you're receiving the newsletter, don't bother. But here's the pin that goes with that. You can pass it down, or have you guys already passed it? If you would like to receive the newsletter, it comes out once a month. It's a short, easy read and informative. It's my way of explaining if I vote no on something, why I voted no, or things that I think are going on in the county that might be of importance or concern to you. So, homelessness. For those of you who have been following me the last year or so, you know that I advocated for a homeless work training program with Pride Industries. And I was so excited in the beginning of 2018 when, and I'm sorry I'm losing my voice, I have something going on there, so bear with me. I was so excited when the board unanimously approved a $387,000 pilot that would fund 4 teams of 10 homeless recruits to go into a work training program. It's an 8-week program whereby they would meet them somewhere on the parkway, pick them up, they would take them and they'd work for a couple hours, then they would go to a certification training program in the field of construction trades. And they earn that certification and then they are placed into an internship, and if they do well in that internship, then they're placed into jobs. And the pilot, we really felt excited about it. We've actually had people at the county board who have come to the board and said, I need a job. If you can help me get a job, I can get out of being homelessness. The problem we ran into, the pilot did not go as well as we hoped, I'm sorry to say, but I always promised you I would tell you the truth. And so the truth is, the first group, we were able to recruit about 11 people. Out of that 11 people, the big challenge that we had was finding people that were not on marijuana or some kind of drugs, and finding people that were actually able to make that commitment to be there every day for 8 weeks. And it was discouraging for Pride. We met a couple of times with them to see what can we do. You know, we thought about maybe recruiting more people. If we recruit more, maybe we'll have more people that are successful. At the end of the day, out of the first group, we had about two women who actually graduated from the program and earned a certificate, and it kind of went downhill from there. And so the big challenge was getting people that really wanted it, or were able to make that choice, who could see themselves able to do that, maybe. I don't know. We were just having trouble recruiting them. So I had that conversation with the staff at the county about a week or so ago, and I said, you know, we need to cancel it. We shouldn't spend taxpayer dollars on something that's not working, and if you're only crossing 2 people over, it's not worth $385,000 or $7,000. So we are redirecting that money, and it'll be going this year. The county has voted in the last couple months to allocate, to pull money from reserves and allocate more funds toward, there's probably more chairs, Tina. Is there more chairs? We want to try to allocate more funds toward drug rehab. We have a special focus on foster children that are aging out of the system, mental health. jail reentry programs. We're already doing jail reentry, but we want to continue that, and we're also working on a program through our probation office whereby we're diverting people from that jail time while they're awaiting trial to work through probation under their supervision. This is people that are not dangerous to the community that can qualify for this program. But at the end of the day, it costs us $175 to $200 a night for people that are in jail. So it's expensive, and if we can find a way to have less people in jail, there's nothing. That's a good thing. And I always want to remind everyone, you already know, we've got a big project going on at the county. You can put some of them up here too, you guys. We have a big project with our jails, and we're anticipating we're going to do some capital improvement to the tune of around $100 million. And once we do that, the programs that we're required to do to better our services in the jails and our inpatient conditions is probably going to cost us around $50 million a year, we anticipate. So we've got about 6 years to ramp up and solve that jail problem, and while we're doing that, we're trying to figure out what else can we do to get people, divert people away from the jails and help them as they're coming out of the jails to be successful in the reentry into our communities. I wanted to share with you an experience that I had with one of my constituents in Folsom who has a son who is schizophrenic. And she walked up to me in one of my meetings and she said, "Will you read this book?" And I said yes. And she basically, the challenge she was having is figuring out how to get her son to treatment because he was of age, and so he was an adult, and if he doesn't choose treatment, she can't make him go. And so I read the book, and through my experience over the last 3 years at the county with all the wonderful initiatives we've been trying, we've tried so hard to wrap around services and navigate people and do job training, and we've done so much, but at the end of the day, the homeless problem is growing faster than we can fix it. And I'm trying to get, all this time, I'm trying to get to the bottom of what's causing this homeless problem. And amazingly, the book called Insane Consequences opened my eyes to some policy that was passed about 5 decades ago at the federal level that created an inpatient mental illness, mental disease exclusion. What it did was it took away the insurance coverage of people that are staying in the mental institutions. At that time, in 1965, the mental state institutions were going broke, and they were trying to figure out how to deal with mental illness. And they actually began to change the way they look at mental illness and think of it as something that can be treated in a behavioral treatment for mental illness or prevention of mental illness. We know now over time that mental illness is neurological, it's biological, it's hormonal, it's so many things. It's physical. It's a medical illness. It's not that there's something wrong with you or that you're weak. It's actually, it's like if you have a cancer, it's like that. You get sick and you need to have treatment. And when a lot of these people who, when they become mentally ill, they are suffering from this condition. It's called anosognosia, and I cannot say that word very well, but basically it's a deficit in self-awareness. It makes it so that they don't realize they have a problem, and so how could they choose? How could they choose to stand up for their own civil rights? And at that time, remember, one flew over the cuckoo's nest, for those of you that are probably my age, which is a lot of you, I think. At that time, it became a civil rights issue where you couldn't lock someone up against their will. unless they were a danger to themselves or others, and you could lock them up for 3 days, et cetera, et cetera. We now are looking at, what can we do? Okay, so that was like 50 years ago. This story's almost over. That was like 50 years ago. Fast forward to 2012. And in 2012, by 2012, after they shut down all the state mental institutions, the people were relegated to prisons, rest homes, families if they had them, but a lot of those kind of people don't have families, or the streets. And so then, fast forward all these years, now the prison system is overcrowded and going broke. And so the prison system is passing laws like AB 109, and I think it was in 2012, I can't remember, but AB 109 was releasing people from the state prison system early, and trying to have less people in prison. And basically, we know 42% of the people in our jails in Sacramento are on the mental health roll. So with that, fast forward another few years is Prop 47 and 57, where they changed the definition of crime, and now you can go into a drugstore and steal up to $950 worth of goods and it's a misdemeanor, it's not an arrestable offense. Yes?
What was the figure you gave? What percent in the jails are mentally ill?
42% are on the mental health roll. They're either on medications or somehow on the mental health roll.
Okay, you just said something, if I heard you correctly, that mental illness is a disease or a medical condition and not a crime. So why would they be in a prison?
Well, they're in the prison or in the jails because they've committed a crime or something like that. So let me finish my story, because we definitely don't want to criminalize the mentally ill, but the result of policy decades ago has kind of resulted in that, because that's where they end up by virtue of their activities and by virtue of there's nowhere else for them to go. And now we are at a threshold where we have a major problem, and it's not just in Sacramento, it's nationwide, and it's a problem that I believe is a result, an unintended consequence to national policy, that IMD exclusion that basically says that insurance companies don't cover mental illness, inpatient mental illness. Well, that right there makes it impossible. How do you cover the cost of it? Who's going to pay for it? So we need to ask our federal legislators to reverse that IMD exclusion, and we need to go back and take Prop 47 and fix it. It's not right. The safety nets that used to catch people when they were starting to show signs of drug addiction, they lost their job, they don't have enough money to eat or buy their drugs, so they steal, they get arrested, and they go to jail. That doesn't happen anymore because they don't get arrested. So the policy is a part of the problem, and I think there's some policy fixes that could help us, at least, I've read several articles, 50%, I've read some articles, 65% of the people out there are either mentally ill or on drugs or drug-induced psychosis. And trust me, meth, it causes psychosis. I know from personal experience, not me, but people I love. Sometimes I think about it, but no, I'm just kidding. Anyway, I won't really, talk any more about that, but I wanted to explain where I'm coming from, because there's a reaction, and it's not always easy to see what that'll be or what'll work. And if you see it's not working, I think a good thing to do is just stop and reverse it and try to fix what's not working. And that's what I think they're trying to do with Prop 47 right now, and I would like to see them do that at the federal level to get some funding for some inpatient mental institutions. And thank you for your correction. Yes?
Sue, your data that you've got is indisputable. I worked for Goodwill for a couple of years, I'm not an expert in homelessness, but it's the same thing that we learned as well. My question to you is, the people of the state are still talking about housing and the answer. And we know that. We know that's not that's not the prime answer. We know that. We know treatment is the prime answer. But are you seeing any recognition at the state level, the funding level, that the mental health and drug and alcohol abuse are possibly more important than housing?
I don't know about the drug treatments at the state level. I do know that the big push when I came on in 2017 was wraparound services. And the Mental Health Services Act, which was passed in it was Prop 63, can't remember when it was passed. That was for all these wraparound services and navigators to help navigate people to the right place. And then what we found out 3 years later is there's no place to navigate them to. So now the big focus is get a place to navigate them to, get housing. The problem is my background in finance is, you know, I've come to learn that if you follow the money, you learn a lot about a person, you learn a lot about everything when you follow the money. And that's how I've come through this, and also with a little help from constituents who gave me some books to read. But I think my point I'm trying to make is we do need more housing. We have to ask ourselves, you know, we're passing laws that raise the cost of housing and the cost of development and construction to the point where developers can't build market rate homes, affordable, not even attainable homes. And then we're coming in with public subsidy to subsidize homes while we're driving the price up, and that's, guess who pays for those subsidies? The taxpayers. You know, whenever someone says it's a government subsidy or government needs to help these people, that's your tax dollars going to help those people. So what we, you know, like they're talking in the Bee today about a project that's going to build some tiny homes, 24 tiny homes for $5 or $7 million. The program is $5 or $7 million for 24 little tiny homes that don't even have a sink and a bathroom inside, and they have to bring a mobile shower around. And the challenge that I have with that is the tiny homes are like a car. It has a shelf life. You know, it's not a home on a permanent foundation, so it's not going to last for 30 or 40 years. It's going to last for 7 to 10 years because it's a moving, you know, that's what they learned with mobile homes through the whole HUD home crisis back in the 90s. I was in finance then. They were saying they were putting them on permanent foundations and they weren't, and the homes were falling apart and they had 30-year loans on them. The problem with that is we're spending all this money on something that's a short-term fix and doesn't help that many people. So, you know, we do need some assisted, affordable apartments, but what we really need to do is figure out what we're going to do about this drug endemic. We need to figure out how to fix and bring our mentally ill people inside so we can bring them back to themselves and they can then be whole again. I'm going to ask him and then I'll get to you, Bridget.
Why apartments? Why houses? When I was in the military, the government was just as happy putting me out in the middle of a field with a tent over my head. A lot cheaper having a tent and a sleeping bag. And that wasn't cruel and unusual punishment. Why can't we come up with a solution like that that's a lot more affordable and away from the areas where they're going to be likely to commit crimes? And then we take care of those who need the help with the drugs and the
That's a great question. There's a policymaker friend of mine up in Placerville. They had the best laid plans. They opened a tent city up in Placerville, and people came, and they were delivering food. they carried out their garbage, they carried out their toilets. All of a sudden, all those homeless people started getting on their smartphones, calling all their friends in LA, saying, "You gotta get up here, it's great." Everyone came from all over, and it was just kept growing. And they tried to transition them from the tent city back into society, but they didn't want to go because they had formed their own little community, and the garbage was piling up, and it was becoming a burden on the city, and the expense was growing. They finally had to shut it down, and within a week, they all just dispersed. So the problem is, these people, I don't know if they aren't always able to take care of their human needs. They don't always know what they're doing. If they're on drugs, you know, they might vomit or something happens in a place that's in the ground. You know, it's a public health issue down in LA right now. They've got typhoid. They're having cases of leprosy. We have diseases coming back that we got rid of a long time ago. And this is not just a human condition, it's a public health condition also. Were you finished?
Well,
You're next.
that's what I was saying, why you have to move them away from the cities. You put them in an area where they can be taken care of. In the middle of LA, or in the middle of Placerville, is not the place to have a tent city. It needs to be away from civilization, so to speak, so that it can be properly
Well, they're having that conversation in Sacramento at high levels. They're having a conversation around, I'm hearing rumors that they're having a conversation around a city of hope where they have different levels of, you know, you can live on the outskirts and then you have to earn your way into the inside and job treatment. And so there are all kinds of conversations going on, and, you know, we have to keep trying. We have to keep trying everything we can think of.
Yeah, it can't be a county or city, it has to be the whole state.
It's actually right, there was the county, that's part of the news, and I was going to share with you. The board voted unanimously to form a commission. There's a representative from each jurisdiction, every city and the county in Sacramento County, to have that conversation around homelessness. And we're having that conversation now. We have 2 people on our board. I originally opposed that when it came to our board. The reason I opposed it was because it was a coalition of Sac County and Sac City and Citrus Heights, but all the cities weren't in the conversation. And I think if you're going to have a conversation, everyone needs to be at the table. And I wanted to require that everyone be at the table. And once that happened, now they're beginning to meet, and the hospitals are kicking in some, going to be helping. I'm sure there will be some announcements coming out. And so hopefully we'll do some exciting things with those resources. Yes.
Well, I just wanted to
And then
say,
you're next.
I think it's worth saying that most of the homeless population is not necessarily mentally ill, but there is mental illness among them, and that homelessness itself actually aggravates the conditions of mental illness. And my question is, aren't the taxpayers already paying quite a bit of money to police the homeless situation rather than house the homeless?
Taxpayers in Sacramento County, we pay over $55 million a year on homelessness through about 11 or 12 different departments. Police is one of them. We have an award-winning sheriff department who has put together these homeless outreach teams with a phone app that's a 15-point question that asks if you have a criminal background, are you a veteran? It GPS locates them. They can then, every time they touch them, they have a GPS location so they know their movements, they know hot spots, they know where to send the resources to, and they're able to really treat this. You know, we are also, I'm excited to share about our mobile crisis support teams. We've had some really good luck with these mobile crisis support teams. And it's like a psychologist and a cop, and they ride together. And what they respond to domestic violence and these calls that are very sensitive in nature. And the psychologist knows just how to diffuse that situation and make it, smooth it out. And they're having some really good success with that. And I'm pleased to say that we voted for more of the mobile crisis support teams in the county. And our district, we used to have a half day in Folsom and a half day in Citrus Heights, half person in Citrus Heights. We now have a full person in Folsom and a full person in Citrus Heights and one more in North Pop. So we've got some real good coverage with the mobile crisis support teams, and I kind of attribute that to our D4 staff who basically proactively, they told me to tell you it was me, but it really wasn't, it was them. They proactively said, we need this, Tina and Matt, they were working on that. Did you have a question?
I found the idea of these tent cities, and I mean no offense to anybody here, but there are tent cities in Los Angeles and Oakland, as you pointed out very well, but those tent cities are, I don't want to use an offensive term, but cesspools almost, where it is just drugs, disease, and almost just all these bad things that cause homelessness just get worse in those areas. Whether that cesspool is in the city or out in the middle of nowhere, doesn't matter. That disease and homelessness is still there, and it gets worse in those areas. And frankly, as a county and as a state, I would consider wiser to invest more in rehabilitative services rather than just pushing them out somewhere else.
One thing we are, for those City of Hope, I don't know if you go online and Google City of Hope, you'll learn about this. It's been highly successful in Texas. But the big part of it is that there's a huge money man behind it who invested to make it happen, and that's the money is the challenge. But I think it's a good idea. But we definitely have to have a large police presence to protect, because people that are out there homeless are victims. They really are. And so, so your point is well taken. I think it has to be carefully planned and organized and managed in a way that we can keep it clean and that we can transition people through. Yes?
You said the people that are out there are victims, or who are you referring to?
I'm referring to someone who is maybe mentally not all there, or maybe on drugs, a vulnerable woman. I've walked through Cesar Chavez Park in the afternoon to go to lunch and heard someone say, you can just tell her I'll be over there to make a visit to her if she doesn't shut her mouth. I'll be over there tonight. They're making threats on people.
This homeless that you're talking about.
There's criminals. There's criminals out there among them, and there's also vulnerable people that are vulnerable.
Right.
Someone in the back, Brian, and then.
Hi, my name is Brian, 48-year resident of Orangevale. First of all, I want to apologize to Sue and to the community here for my outburst a little bit ago about turning off the magnet. It was inappropriate for me to say that. My frustration level is kind of tenuous right now. Earlier this afternoon, I stopped at the Orangevale branch post office here at Greenback and Hazel. And as I'm walking into the lobby, there's a sign on the door that says, this facility is closed outside of the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. So after 6 p.m., you can't get in to check your mail. And I thought, what's up with that? So I asked the counter, and they said, because of vandalism. And I said, well, what kind of vandalism at the post office? And they said, people sleeping in the lobby. And I thought, wow, I wasn't even aware. I wasn't even aware of that. So I don't mind modifying my going by the post office, but I didn't realize how in my face that circumstance is. So I was a little bit irritated by that just in the last couple hours. So again, I apologize for my outburst. This is a multi-pronged issue. We need to approach it with best practices from whoever's doing what good work around the nation. but there's illness, physical and mental illness, there's economic things, and there's that third category that most of us don't want to acknowledge. Some people like the casual lifestyle that being subsidized by society. So taking all these into consideration, how do we get to best practices?
I think the biggest
And again,
concern now is public health, I think. But public health and safety is huge.
So
Yes.
could we move on to?
Yeah.
We spent
Well,
for our
okay,
meeting on
I'm gonna
trying to
take-
get
thank
solved
you.
tonight.
Okay, we're gonna take your you want to say it till later?
It's fine.
Okay. I'm gonna move on, thank you.
So,
That was
yeah,
very
I don't
good.
mean to be offensive,
No worries.
so.
Okay, I want you to know we have an Inspector General. His name is Mark Evanson. I have met with him. I think he's going to be great. He is an experienced police police executive with 32 years in law enforcement experience. And of those, 20 were in middle and senior management levels. 10 years were as chief of police for the city of Brentwood. Extensive experience in internal affairs investigator as a commander. He has demonstrated leadership, success in police accountability, citizen complaint investigations, and community police relations. We have been very clear with our new IG that we want him to proactively look for ways that we can make our department better and that we can make sure that our officers, our deputies have the resources they need to have the training and the equipment to keep them safe while keeping our communities safe. And so he's already started working, so I'll look forward to hearing from him. We are looking at a new road Measure A for the November ballot, a new road tax, and right now at the Sacramento Transportation Authority, we are having that conversation around an expenditure plan and what that would look like. It's very, I'll say it without saying any words. It's kind of tense, a little bit tension around the priorities. Different jurisdictions have different needs. The suburbs are different than the downtown. Everybody needs money, and so and the polling that we did showed that the taxpayers basically crystal clear. They want the roads fixed. They want congestion fixed. They want accountability. They want to know that the money is going to go where we said it was going to go. So those are the things that I'm fighting for at the STA board right now. And we're probably going to be making that decision on the expenditure plan in mid-March.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Does that involve any, like, new renovations in transportation at all, or is it just fixing the roads?
The expenditure plan, right now, we have received needs assessments from all the different players. So that would be all the city and county Department of Transportation, regional transit, a new player, rail, has emerged into the scene. Senior assisted transportation for seniors, safe routes to schools. There's all the SACOG, Sacramento Area Council of Governments, and all of those. Air quality management is vying for part of it. They're all wanting to have an expenditure plan that's going to position them for more matching funds from the state and federal government. My position on the roads is pretty simple. I look at it from the standpoint of the money. I just follow the money. And if you fix the road, when I came on board in 2007, when I was elected in 2016, our backlog on our roads maintenance was $450 million. Today, 3 years later, it's $795 million. 3 years later, it's almost doubled. And that's because the condition of our roads has declined. We did a study a year ago, and our road condition at that time in the unincorporated county was 59 PCI. That's a number between 1 and 100, 100 being the good one. Anything below 55 is like beginning to get down to crackles and falling apart. And the lower you get, the exponentially more it costs to fix it, because you have to scrape everything off down to the dirt and then put a whole new road, because you can't just fix it over the moving pieces, because it'll just fall apart again. And so what we have is a growing cost for the roads. And the reason we have that, I followed that money when I first got elected, for those of you who haven't, some of you have heard this before, but I found out that, the federal government in 2012 pulled back on funding infrastructure, passed it to the states. I'm trying to make this fast. Then the states passed it, and they asked us to be self-help counties and cities, to pass our own tax measures to help with our roads. And the state has pulled back theirs. And what the state has done since 2008 is they have redirected over $15 billion worth of money that still went to transportation, but it's going to transportation debt. There's all the bonds. They have so much debt now. They're transferring money, transportation dollars from our taxes to pay debt. And so it's not going to our quality of life in the streets. And so hence my battle for, let's just fix the roads. We can stop the bleeding. If we add more rail or more light rail or more buses, and we need all that. We need those. But the problem we have is each one of those has a net negative administration cost annually. When I asked at SACOG, how much what's the net profit or loss on rail, it's around 60 or 65% loss. It has to be subsidized. There are some passenger rails that are doing way better than that. I just heard the other day one is doing something like 90%, only 10% subsidized. So the buses are typically, they said, average 80% subsidized. The light rail is, trying to remember what the light rail was. I can't remember, and I'm not going to give you the number. I don't want to get it wrong. Yeah, it's subsidized. It's a net negative. It's a net negative annual cost, is what I'm saying. So if you grow it, you're growing the annual cost while you already can't afford to fix your roads. If you fix your roads, you're stopping the bleeding. Yes.
I was going to say, does anybody realize this? Why do we keep trying to do things why do we keep investing in the net negative things?
They realize it, but we're held hostage to state policy that was passed in 2014, AB 32, which was an environmental policy that ramps up over time, and we're now in at that point where it's really ramping up, and we haven't even been successful with the beginning years. We have air quality goals that are taking us back to the early that by 2050 we have to be back to the early 1900s on greenhouse gas emissions. Well, you can imagine, we had so many, we had horses and buggies and less people, and it's going to be hard. So the goal is to get people out of their cars. The easiest path is to get people out of their cars to ride public transportation. The problem is Americans don't seem to, when we did the polling at STA, 85% still ride in their car alone, and 1% use public transportation. The current expenditure plan that we're looking at, the latest proposal was 60-40. They want 40% to go toward rail and public transportation, and 60% to go towards roads and congestion. That means fixing roads and capital improvement and congestion, which it was around 38% that was going to fix the roads at the end of the day. And so if they'll go out and they'll say this is the road and congestion tax, but we have to look at what is it going to do. I'm not sure what it'll do yet, so I'm not sure what my position will be, or what. I'm pretty sure I'm the minority, and it will probably not go my way. Yes?
Yes, Mrs. Faust, do you know approximately how much we pay on per gallon of gas in tax, state tax? Yeah, it is. It's about 70 to 80 cents,
Yeah,
isn't it?
I'm sorry,
Do you know?
Yes.
It's between 70 and 80 cents a
Per
gallon.
gallon, yeah.
Per gallon. That we're already paying every time we put gas in our car to improve our roads. And now they want to bring another
well,
tax on us.
yeah, I think what we as citizens have to, I represent you, so we as citizens, when we're voting on these tax increases, I think we need to think carefully, because I'll share this with you. Taxes in California. And I always say we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. Taxes in California. California has the top 3 state income tax brackets. Second highest capital gains tax in the world, only next to Denmark, which is higher. The highest statewide sales tax, highest gas taxes, highest diesel taxes, highest state corporate income tax west of Iowa, excluding Alaska, where no one wants to live. Property tax, even with Prop 13, California ranks number 42 out of 50 states among the top 9 highest tax regions in the nation. California pays 53.6% more than the national average. So, and that's something, when you're thinking about the split roll, when it comes in November, we'll talk about it. We won't talk about it tonight, but we will talk about it in some of our next meetings. Prop 13 has tracked with inflation. It stayed ahead of inflation all along. But if you look at your property tax bill, and I think I'm going to be writing about this or something in the next few months, because if you look at your property tax bill, you're going to see, school bonds, and you'll see library bonds, and all this other stuff has been added on. And those, believe it or not, those have to be paid. They're a lien against if you're a homeowner, it's a lien against your home. And at the end of the day, if something happened that they couldn't pay it, it could be called, and then it becomes the debt of the taxpayers. It is the debt of the taxpayers. It may seem far away from you, but it's your debt, the debt that they're building. The budget in California increased from $90 billion to $201 billion in the past decade. In the past decade, education spending increased from $37 billion to $71 billion. California education ranked, and I love you, Mike McKibben, and I think you're really good at what you do. So this is not you, but this is the state of California ranked 37th in education. Housing affordability dropped to 49th. Homelessness tripled, gas prices doubled, percentage of roads in disrepair is 499% higher. These are all, this is, not going in a good direction, and I think it's important. Sometimes when things aren't, it's like when my son got his first credit card. Wait, was it the son? No, it was the daughter. She went out and maxed it out, and then, had to figure out how to pay the payments. She was struggling to pay the payments and wanted to borrow more, and I said, no, you pay that off and then come back. You need to show that you're creditworthy. It's like sometimes it's good to draw a line in the sand and say, no, go back and work with your pencil a little longer and think of something else, because that's not good enough for us. And I think people are beginning to have those conversations, to try harder to find efficiencies. I don't think on the public side it's as easy to, on the private side you can find efficiencies that you can't find on the public side, because in the private sector, if you can privatize it, it's good for everyone. It brings more jobs. So it's 7 o'clock, and if we have a couple of questions, I can, yes.
Well, mine is more of a comment. What you just said was perfect. It showed that the direction we've been going in is the wrong direction, because look at how bad things have become. That alone speaks to the fact that we need to do a complete reversal on what we've been doing. Otherwise, we're going to get even worse. It's just logic. And so,
Yeah, but to your point, the challenge that public servants have, we get elected and we take an oath to uphold the state laws and the national laws, but we represent the people. We're tugged back and forth. And so I always try, when I get on these boards, I always try to remember, I'm not here representing this board or the people that are on the board. I'm here representing you at the board. I try to think of that in my mind, and you know, sometimes there's a lot of pressure to just be a part of the solution. You know, everybody wants to compromise and be part of the solution, but it's not going in a good direction, and it's time for someone to draw a line, and someone's got to do it. Yes, and then you.
Would you touch on because if we're running out of time, we got a couple minutes to do it. The Proposition 13 and Measure E, explain, do you have the time to do that?
I'm not sure, a Measure E.
It's the other part of Prop 13 that's on the ballot.
Okay, well, the Prop 13 that's on the March 3rd ballot, is that what you're talking about?
That and Measure E, the readings, they seem to go hand in hand.
Okay, Prop 13 2020 is a school bond. It is a $15 billion bond that will build educational facilities, I think in the kindergarten to 12th grade, and at the colleges. They anticipate the payoff will be over 35 years with $11 billion in interest, so it'll be a $26 billion payoff by the time we pay it off. The other part of that is that it changes the way districts can make money. So, and Mike may want to speak to this better than I can, but it basically says the districts cannot charge developers for mitigation fees if they're building high density near transit. So it's trying to encourage housing near transit. And in order to cover the cost of that, it's allowing the districts to increase the amount of bonds they can do at the school district, at the local district level. So it's increasing, in some cases, up to 60% the amount of bonding they can do at the local level, which means it passes what the developers used to pay that mitigation, it passes that to the tax. If they end up doing the bonds to pay for that cost, it ends up passing that tax to the taxpayers. Mike, do you have anything to add to that?
It just tries to be a bit more flexible and allows districts to qualify for a certain amount of funds if this Proposition 13 2020 passes. It gives us a little bit more opportunity to, frankly, get more bang for our buck. You can see which side of it I'm on. So.
Yeah, so there's, I know people on both sides of the aisle that have supported it. I didn't support it, but I know I have Republican friends that supported it. So I think there was also the other one. Do you know about the other bond?
It's more directly, I think it's more, it has a community college piece in it. Yes.
I think the other one is the other one was funding facilities also, but I think there were some rural areas that were going to have to close down schools, and so it was going to help fund some of that. I'm not sure. I can't speak to the other one tonight.
Okay, so we just kind of say that we don't have any definitive information on it, but you mentioned taxes and bonds. So where are these, what taxes are you talking about?
Property taxes.
Okay, so it will affect people's property tax?
If a school bond is passed in your district, it goes on to your property tax if you're a homeowner.
Okay, on the property tax papers, it refers to ad valorem tax. It's an ad valorem tax. Could you look into that, please? And
I'll bring you back. How about if I bring you back? Somehow bring you back information on all this.
Well, I would like to know the factors required to calculate an ad valorem tax.
I don't think, I think that would be a question for the tax assessor, or it depends on the tax. Every tax
Right.
is a different tax, so I don't know if I can answer that question.
Okay, could you inquire with the assessor about that? What
You
factors?
can contact the county.
Here,
Well, I've
do
been,
this.
Yeah, it's in the phone book.
Email me, you know my email.
yes.
Email me the question and I'll get the
Okay,
answer.
thank you, Sue.
One thing that I just want everybody to realize is any bond that's passed, yeah, that is going to increase your property tax. But what it also means is that over the next 30 years, it's going to increase your property tax. And for the kids who are in high school, junior high right now, they're going to have to pay that. So we're voting on something that they have to pay back in the future, which I think is a little bit unfair, but just something to keep in mind.
I think
More of them than there are of us.
I think a good way to look at,
Not so much anymore.
I think a good way to look at cost, any kind of cost, is what is the life cycle of what you're paying for? Are the facilities that you're building going to outlast the loan? Because if they don't outlast the loan, then you are going to have stacking debt to continue managing it, and something's really wrong with that picture. So, and there are a lot of online resources for researching this kind of stuff. Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association talks a lot about them. Yes.
In Citrus Heights, we had a grammar school right down the block from my house, and there was a bond passed, and $40 million went into renovating the school. But the school did not improve the classroom experience. There was a teacher teaching a class of 60 children with an assistant, with a divider in the room. So, I mean, to me, is that what we're talking about?
Are you talking about the Citrus Heights?
Yes.
The Sylvan School?
Yes. No, not the Sylvan School, the one on Primrose. Forget what the name of it is, because my kids are too old. But
Yes.
not Skycrest, the other one.
You know, Sue, if you listen to the state message today, our governor made it appear like everything was rosy, that California was leading the nation. What do you think that we're going to be able to get some of the politicians to do, like you just said, to realize that they need to go back and sharpen the pencil and figure out ways to accomplish things without just issuing a new tax?
I think it's a business decision, and it's not the politicians' decision, it's our decision as citizens.
Don't you think?
I think it's the citizens that can change it, and if the politicians are not representing, and if they don't care about our quality of life in our neighborhoods, then we have to wonder if they're representing us well. And, you know, if you ever feel that way about me, my recommendation is vote no on Sue, because that, you know, if people would, I think a lot of people are so busy trying to survive or moving out of the state, they're not, they'd rather give up than you know, fight it. But I think what we have to do is be better communicators. There's ways you can do it without having to go downtown. You can email your representatives. People email me all the time and say, Sue, actually there's Mr. Wallace here emailed and said, Sue, your article was good, but you didn't get it all. And there's other people who have said, Sue, you need to know this. The woman that gave me the book. So we need to help. It's like with a business, when you hire someone and they're not doing that well, you help them. And then if they can't do it, you put them somewhere where they can do it. You get them out of that seat on the bus and put them in another seat on the bus where they can excel. And that's what you do. Maybe some of these politicians would be better working in nonprofits in our communities. I don't know. Pardon me? Okay, this woman hasn't talked yet. Okay, I'm going to let you go after this question.
Okay, I was very impressed to hear your comments about not a revenue as much as a spending issue, and the way we spend and the kinds of effects that we seem to have a thought that money just falls from the sky. And there's a project that is a clear example of that right now in your own district that would affect all of us. And that is the ability to put in a trail through the Sundance natural area. And if any of you aren't familiar with it, it's right off of Fair Oaks, and it's a wooded area. It's partly a SMUD transmission line, but you don't even see the line so much when the trees, and mostly all oak trees. And ordinarily, we're used to seeing bike paths that are about 8 feet wide, and they're asphalt on top of the ground, however they want to stabilize it. This project has blown my mind from the very beginning, because through what is an oak woodland, instead of following the path, they want to put a 14-foot wide trench, a 1.5 foot deep, and remove over 300 oak trees. Now, there's already a path there. If you go at Fair Oaks and stop, you can see there's a nice little path. My husband and I walk our dog and take our grandchildren on that all the time. And so it's very easy to overlay that and just put in, if you want to improve it, I don't necessarily think it needs improvement, but go ahead, make it an asphalt trail. It doesn't need to be a 1.5 foot deep trench. It doesn't need to have decomposed granite wings when you've got beautiful oak trees that now provide shade over this. The cost of this has got to be absolutely astronomical when you're talking about alternative funding, where your gas tax money goes. That's where it's going.
I know.
It's rolled right up that line, and it could be done at a fraction of the cost and be a wonderful asset to the community. So it's not an issue of do we do it or not. There's not a pro and a con or people against everything. This is an issue of a project that has been described that is absolutely an environmentalist, an economist, a mother's nightmare because of the debt that it's going to continue to increase. Plus the loss of over 300 trees.
So
We're at this time of climate change and carbon.
Are you talking about the electric green trail
yes, I am.
of Citrus Heights?
Yes.
So I do want to say, I'm not sure what the progress is on that, but when they did that EIR, the proposal that they put forward for the EIR was the worst case scenario. And the trees that will be, there will be tree mitigation, but I think, I don't know that many trees is going to, in the end, come out. They're going to try and minimize the number of trees that come out of there. That was just, they were trying to, EIR's environmental impact reports cost $100,000 or more. And so when you do one, you want to do the worst case scenario so that when you come back, it's uphill from there. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I'm not sure that many trees are going to come out.
I've done many EIRs, and then when they do an EIR, they exempted themselves from it by just declaring themselves a negative deck, which means there's no impact.
They still had to address how they were going to mitigate those
Can I meet with
things.
you separately on this at some point?
We can, I think we already have, and I'm not sure, I'm the one, because that's, Citrus Heights is the lead agency on that. So
The property and the trees that are coming down are all in Orangevale.
yeah, I can meet with you, but we will have to talk with Citrus Heights. They're the lead agency. I'm not, the county is not running that. We're kind of a partner in a way, we've taken a back seat. It's a very small portion of the county.
But your approval is going to be necessary. So
Our
you
approval
give
will be
those to the
necessary,
agency.
but they're the lead in the project, so I don't have the details on it. But yes, you can contact us.
I understand that, and I appreciate your being open to hear you about it.
We've talked before, I think.
No, I haven't met you before. This is the
Okay, it
first
must have
time
been
I've
someone
met you.
else. Someone else that talked a lot like you.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's good.
All right, thank you guys for coming.
We have any students here that need to get sheets saying that they were here for class? Anyone else want to?
I'll go outside if anybody wants to ask me.